So I think you just have to take that first leap and you realize how many different directions it can really take you.
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat of Take the Doughnut, here to help you get inspiration and get donuts. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, and today I'm bringing you a very exciting Take the Doughnut interview with Pedram Navab, who is an attorney, a neurologist, and a fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. Welcome, Pedram.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk with you, and we've just been talking offline about how we're both fellow Brown grads, and that's how we're coming to this conversation. So it's nice to be able to talk with somebody with that Rhode Island connection.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Well, before we get into anything more related to your specific background and your work, I have to ask, what's your favorite donut?
Well, I think my favorite donut is the glazed donut, and it is my favorite because I associate it with my childhood years. And every time I go there, the smell and the taste just takes me back there. And I would probably say like Krispy Kreme. Um, I know it's not super healthy, but I figure, once in a while it's fine. The cronut is also very good. The combination of the croissant and donut I've enjoyed more and more. So yeah, I think those two would be my favorite.
I love it. The basic glazed and the glazed cronut. It's interesting actually because I didn't realize this would happen before I started doing these interviews, but it seems like donuts for a lot of people are attached to childhood memories,
Yes.
maybe more so than other desserts, and it comes up a lot in these conversations. So I've been really interested by that.
And from a neurological standpoint, if we're getting into neuro, smell has a very strong connection to memory. And Proust, Marcel Proust talked about this with the Madeleines and taste. So it just kind of brings you back. Just the smell itself brings back that memory. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Sound and smell have a big connection in the frontal lobe of the brain, which is kind of memory consolidation. Um, so maybe that's the reason that I
That
enjoy it.
definitely could be. It's been interesting to take note of. I've said just a little bit about you up front, but tell us more about yourself. What should we know about you?
Well, I mean, I've got so many varied interests, which you can see from, I've done grad school, med school, law school, but I was an English major as an undergrad. Decided to pursue more education, applied to the PhD in English and Modern Culture Media at Brown. Intended to stay there for the PhD, but I always had an interest in medicine as well. So I decided to take a leave from the program, apply to med school, and then that was kind of it. Once you're in med school, it's hard to leave med school because of the debt, the amount of time spent. So I went from med school to residency in neurology at University of Arizona, sleep medicine fellowship at started and then after that I went to law school part-time at Loyola Law School here in LA. And took the bar. So I'm kind of working as also as an expert witness and medical legal specialist if law firms are in need of it. And then after that, I did a integrative medicine fellowship with Andrew Weil at the University of Arizona, and that was it. That I'm not going to pursue it any further. That is it. I told myself.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that really gives us sort of a step-by-step look at the decisions you made, the movements you made on the way to the career that you're at right now. I'm going to hit the reset button here for those who've never seen a Take the Donut interview before, because I'd like to explain what this is. So basically, for me, Take the Donut is another way to say carpe diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. And it comes from for me from this very strange thing that happened at Brown, where I left an actual donut on a table, but it almost immediately became an object lesson for me and what it looks like to leave opportunities behind. So I don't want to do that anymore. I want to take the donut when one is presented to me. So, with that in mind, this conversation is all about going after the things that you want in life. And what does that look like for us, practically speaking? And from the answer you just gave, I can tell you're somebody who does that. I mean, it sounds like you've really pursued things that were in front of you, whether you knew that was coming or not. So, I wanted to ask you this question to get us started. How are you with going after goals? What is that process like for you?
I mean, I think it just kind of depends on interest for me. I get bored very easily, as you can tell. And I sort of jump into things a little hastily, I think. Like law school was one of those things where I'm like, oh, that should be super easy. And it wasn't that difficult, but it's a time commitment. And then it was hard to leave after a year. So I really do take that carpe diem to heart. I really try to seize as much opportunity as I can. Um, One of the things that I can recall is I wrote a piece in med school about dissecting a cadaver. Because the first year in gross anatomy we do dissections, and it was kind of a short piece, sort of a note to a cadaver that I was writing. Uh, Years later, one of my friends thought it was a really good piece, and they said you should turn it into a novel. So I did. I wrote, about 200 pages or so, submitted it to various agents who liked it, thought it was a little weird, but some passed on it. But then Jaded Ibis Press, which is a very small, unique press in Seattle, picked up the book and decided to publish it. And then that kind of started the literary side of my career. Um, I think 4 years later, I did my second novel, and then 3 years later, my third novel, and then I've written some one nonfiction book, and another one is coming out next year.
Wow.
So from that kind of, this is good, to um, other stuff. Um, it was just a suggestion, but I took it to heart and I started writing, and it worked out. Um, for the nonfiction book, one of my good friends that I went to school with in England for a year abroad program, Lisa Lutz, who's a famous novelist. She wrote the Spellman Files and the Accomplice. She told me I should try to use my novelistic methods in a nonfiction book. So my first nonfiction book was really a collection of stories with people with sleep problems, approached approached through kind of a literary way, of both diagnosis and treatment. So that's what I ended up doing. W. W. Norton picked that up, and 2 years ago, and that was a success. So now I have my second book.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
you know, I'm curious how you're going to answer this one because you've said that it's not necessarily hard for you to get interested in something and start going after it. But if it's a big project, if it's something that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources, a lot of money, whatever, what keeps you motivated to continue on the path?
Yes. So let me go back to law school. It's really the debt. After a year in law school, I was like, well, maybe this was not the best way to go about it. But then you realize you've accrued, at least 15, $20,000, and it's just hard to kind of let go of that. And eventually, I actually liked the law the second year, and the third and fourth years. But initially, it's more the debt, I think, that kind of keeps you going, realistically, because you don't want to just forgo the amount of money that you just spent.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. And the time that you put in and like the resources that you put in, it's all kind
Right.
of rolled up in that. But for you, it's the financial element. So a
And
lot of
yeah, and
times,
the resources, yeah. Yeah, and
yeah.
the resources and the effort that you also mentioned as well.
Yeah. Well, most of the time when we're going after something important or big in our lives, obstacles come in our way. It's not always smooth sailing. So, for you, is there a particular brand of challenge or obstacle that seems to come up over and over again? Like, no matter what it is you're doing in whatever sphere of your life, you can sort of expect this Achilles heel to rear its head. What is it for you?
Obstacles. I mean, I think it's time, really. I mean, that's the biggest obstacle. I tend to take too many projects, um, and that's always been difficult. It's kind of time management. I think I've gotten better over the years, but I think time would be the obstacle, really. I know that's kind of a generic, cliche answer, but that's what I've run against is time.
People don't mention it as much as I would think they would. I mean, there's so many things to do in this world and in this life, and we don't have the time to do all of them. And it's why it's so important that we make choices. It's what brings more stakes to the choices as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Yeah.
Well, as somebody who's taken a lot of donuts in his life, what would you say is the biggest one you've ever taken? Biggest opportunity you've said yes to, or biggest thing you've gone after? What would you pick for that?
Biggest opportunity. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, one of the big opportunities obviously would be going into medicine, because that kind of set everything in one direction. So I would say that would be kind of a general, because that's really what I do. I mean, I do dabble in law, but medicine is really what I've done for 20 years. So I would say that would be taking the challenge of leaving a, a great PhD program at Brown, a really well-known program, and not knowing, if I would get into med school or not, and then kind of taking that on. It was quite a challenge taking, I had to take my pre-med courses in chemistry, physics, and I'm coming from an English modern culture film background, so it was very difficult. So I would think that was the biggest challenge, the biggest donut that I took, not knowing where it was going to take me, or if I had to go back to grad school if that didn't work out, basically.
Mm. What is the donut that you're taking right now?
The donut that I'm taking right now, I think it has to do with the, the nonfiction books that I'm writing. The first one, I'm not a nonfiction writer. I write fiction, I enjoy fiction, but with that nonfiction book, it did well. And, my agent and I decided to submit another proposal for a different book. The first book was about cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep through a narrative approach. This one is called The Alchemy of Sleep, and it's taking more of the metaphysical, spiritual, Buddhist way of thinking about sleep. So it's very different. Also using modern neuroscience with it as well. So it's a combination of the metaphysical, neuroscience, spiritual, um, that no one's really done before, kind of the amalgamation of the two. So I think that trajectory of maybe doing more nonfiction books is the bigger donut that I'm taking right now, because that's not something that I thought I would enjoy really.
But I guess you never know where your life takes you. And maybe years ago, you wouldn't have thought that's the direction you'd end up in, but it's all led you here. So, my
Yeah,
goodness,
exactly.
it sounds like really interesting material as well for you to delve into.
Yeah, and it's taking a little bit more personal approach to it. I start off each chapter with a different way of dealing with sleep. During my second year actually my first year in neurology, I was involved in a traumatic car accident, um, where I almost died. I was taken to the ICU. I was driving home uh, from um, from Arizona to California, and I fell asleep behind the wheel. As residents, we work, you know, um, some nights 20 hours a week. And, that particular week, one of my fellow residents was gone. So I was taking care of more patients and stupidly decided to drive for, the Labor Day weekend. And I fell asleep behind the wheel. And that was kind of the impetus for me to do a sleep medicine fellowship, to tell people about the role that sleep plays in everyday life and health and life and death consequences, which almost happened to me. So that was also a reason to do that.
What an interesting jumping off point for you.
Yeah, I mean, I had to get a craniotomy. They took my the skull out, drained the blood. I mean, this was a couple of years of hell, basically, during
Yeah.
residency. I had to take some time off, but it was just insane.
Wow.
And I talk about that in the book. Each chapter is really a personal experience with regard to sleep and that how that relates to the theme of the book, the metaphysical and the religious.
I'm so glad that you got to the other side of that. And it's even more interesting now to think about the material that you're writing about because you probably have a very unusual relationship to it. Even more so than I knew before I knew that
Yeah,
story. So,
yeah,
wow. Well,
definitely.
there may be people who are watching this right now who have a donut of their own that they want to take. They have something that they want to go after in their lives. It could be that they're still in ideation phase, or it could be that they've started and they're looking for some inspiration to keep moving forward. So let's sprinkle some encouragement. And what would you say to those people?
I mean, I really do think life is super short, and if you don't take the donut, you will always regret it. I mean, like your anecdote of going into the class and someone else had taken the donut. I mean, yeah, you may fail at what you want, but you will never know unless you decide to take the donut. Um, and I've always just kind of was interested in certain things, so I just kind of pursued that. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But at least I took the chance, and it's been favorable because one thing led to another and to another. So I think you just have to take that first leap, and you realize how many different directions it can really take you. Um, so, because if I hadn't done medicine, I probably wouldn't have done law. I probably wouldn't have written the books that I did, especially with regard to sleep. So everything kind of followed a pathway based on what I started, which is with medicine, or even my undergrad and grad school experience with English, because I'm writing now. That was not irrelevant. Um, Now that I think about it, obviously.
Hmm.
So just jump in there, take it one step at a time, and it'll just go somewhere else. That's what I would say.
It's such an encouraging way to frame that because I think a lot of times people see an end goal in their minds and they see where they are to start, and it may feel like there are so many steps along the way, but what you may not realize is that each of those steps may be putting you in the path of different people or different opportunities,
Exactly.
and they can all be a jumping off point of their own. So you never know what's going to become
Exactly.
available to you. You just start.
Yeah, one thing leads to the next, and before you know it, you've you may have wanted to do something but didn't know how to go about it. And those little steps actually led up to your ultimate job or occupation or dream.
Hmm. For those who want to follow you on your journey, maybe find out when this next book is going to come out, where can they find you? What link should I put in the description?
You could probably do Instagram, and it's at Dr. DOCTOR dot Navab, Navab. That would probably be the easiest way because they can
Perfect.
follow the photos and the adventures, the book coming out next September, or actually probably next October.
Amazing. Well, everybody be sure to check out that resource. I'll make sure to put that in the description of this video. And if you liked hearing Pedram's story, be sure to like and subscribe on this video because there's so many inspirational interviews still to come. But in the meantime, Pedram, thank you so much for taking some time for talking with me and for sharing a little bit about your journey.
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks again for inviting me. You have a great attitude. Uh, and yeah, it's a great podcast. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you for that. And for everybody who is watching this, you know what to do. Go out there, get inspiration, get donuts. Bye, everyone.